is this just fantasy or is this heavy metal? Or in the French, metal hurlant. So I had to, of course, eventually get to heavy metal. I've done Savage Sword of Conan and like Eerie and things like that. And there are other books to come soon. I will absolutely cover Epic Illustrated. That was a release from Marvel that has some cool art in it, some cool comic stories told in it. But I had to go with this one as before any of those because heavy metal, just such a landmark book. This is, of course, not the first issue of heavy metal because that's exorbitantly expensive and I can't afford to just throw down money on copies of heavy metal, but the ones I can get across or get my hands on, I will of course do that. But I definitely want to start with this one just because it's got that iconic cover that goes along with the heavy metal animated film that came out at the same time. So yeah, this is September 1981. And I'm also starting with this one because there's a really cool fantasy story inside it because that's the key thing for me. It says the Adult Illustrated Fantasy Magazine, and fantasy, I think, is being applied more as a more of a blanket term for imaginative fiction because I would say that most heavy metal issues have predominantly science fiction stories in them and not necessarily fantasy stories in the terms that I would use it or I would describe as. But this one definitely does. And there's going to be some other comics along the way to that comic, and I'll touch on them, but for the most part, I have my sights set on one story in particular. So let's get this going. Oh, and just, anybody who knows heavy metal knows this already, but there's going to be, it's European, folks. There's got to be some nudity and whatnot in it. So, just prepare yourselves for it. And a Swedam illustration here. He was definitely a common contributor to it. And here, you want to get the album for heavy metal? It's probably better than the movie. I mean, the movie's, it is what it is, but, it's not, it's loved by the people who love it. So we got some really great creators contributing to this one, not the least of which Richard Corbin. And we have Den 2, or an installment of Den 2 in this book, which Den is one of those things that eventually I might get to on this channel, but I really dig it. I really dig Richard Corbin, and he draws like nobody else, which is another reason to look at him. I also get Jim Steranko, some Howard Chaykin, Jeff Jones, or as became Catherine Jones, and it's a shorty but a goodie. Brokaw Ramohi. Brokaw Ramohi. Brokaw Ramohi is the one that we're gonna definitely be coming to, and looking at more specifically as the Eye of the Goddess Islia. And that is the story that really matters as far as fantasy goes in this issue. There's also other great works in here, and just a work by a complete moron, Charles Platt here. And I don't need to get into it, but basically he's like, it's a whole essay about why fantasy, as I would term it, like say medieval fantasy, high fantasy, is why it's worthless, and why all the fantasy things that were coming out at this time, or by this time, 1981, contribute nothing to culture. And he's just a big fucking moron. And I'll just leave him to his sci-fi, but yeah, it's hilarious that that's in this issue and follows a really great fantasy story. So I don't even know. Anyway, we're gonna get to it, folks. So I want to definitely look at Den just to talk about Richard Corbin, because I haven't been able to talk about him yet. There's a few things of his that I think we can cover, and definitely eventually, because I'm going to be doing more Hellboy stuff kind of in Octobers. And he, of course, had some amazing contributions to the world of Hellboy, specifically The Crooked Man, as well as other tales. But here we have just an installment of Den 2. And I don't really want to even get into what Den is. It's I guess you would say more of a sci-fi tale. It's like a person transported to another world. It's that kind of trope, and it's a little bit more sci-fi, but there's also some fantasy elements. But just how he renders his figures to be so physical, so voluminous, is really incredible. And also how he proportions them, because everybody's got kind of bigger heads and like these big hands and everything. Everything's bigger, and you're going to see in a second what I mean. But it's so interesting. He's also coloring it himself, and from what I've learned, like his coloring method is unreplicable. It's so bizarre, kind of backward, so unique. Here's a little postcard for you, folks, if you want to order some heavy metal in the 80s. But here we are on this like kind of cool little floating island. And yeah, I don't want to get into the story because it's not really what we're talking about here, but it's just, I love this zoom out. Again, he's not just a great artist, he's a great visual storyteller, and just it really works. People flying on this dragon, and yeah, they're seeing some danger, and he decides to, I guess, disrobe, and yeah, it's a hilarious scene. Anyway, yeah, he just draws so differently, so uniquely. And like, he's not afraid to cartoon, he's not afraid to exaggerate, but he's also, look at the textures on this guy's face. It's just so great, and yeah, just gorgeous colors. He's a great artist. But anyway, yeah, so yeah, just that's the thing about these magazines, is that it's just like a little bit of a little taste or a little installment in the story. Usually it's enough to like, oh, catch your interest, but it definitely, it makes you want to buy the next issue. So we're going to just kind of zip through this one. Gorgeous art, though. Really. Gorgeous art. And just, yeah, what a level of illustration here. It's just incredible line work. But again, I'm not going to get into the story, but it's like, has a vague Egyptian influence, which if anybody has read my comic 3-panel origin, you might know that I have an interest in such a thing. Man, love these suits. Look at these incredible battle suits, and I love the cutaway. Just, I always love that kind of stuff, especially for like made up technology. And this has a very strong, like, kind of getting like alien vibes, but also some like Mobius. I don't know. A lot of European artists took their cues from Jean Giraud. Yeah, look at that face, man. All black and white. It's all you need. It's incredible. Here we have our Howard Chaykin, Cody Starbuck, kind of doing a spaceman character, swashbuckler. Everybody had their version of like Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon back in the day, because that was the thing, the model, that was the prototype. And everybody did their little riff on it. I mean, Star Wars is a riff on those things. Howard Chaykin, another one of those really great artists. Although, unfortunately, unless there's something that I don't know of with him, nothing of his really fits the theme of the channel. There's no big fantasy work that he has that I'd love to talk about, or even short fantasy work. Maybe that he did a short story in something that I could talk about at some point. But anyway, it's nice to see him here. Yeah, gorgeous stuff. Now, this is a wild thing. So is this. But this is a wild thing. Something I didn't know existed. A Jim Steranko adaptation of the movie Outland, which is a movie that stars Sean Connery, as you can see. But that is something I didn't know existed. And I'm wondering, like, is there a collected version of it? Because it's so fucking weird. Like, why is, it says written and illustrated by Steranko, which is, like, fascinating. Fascinating. I want to learn more about this. But yeah, Steranko Outland, which that's a little talked about movie. It's a sci-fi movie starring, most people's favorite Bond. And yeah, but like with this it's Steranko, but it's also very like Jack Kirby-esque technology and everything. It's a hell of a thing to see. And just such a great, strong use of blacks here. It's just great. Anyway, that's that. And that's enough of that for this issue. But still, what? It's so weird. So crazy. I mean, it makes me think of the adaptation that Walt Simonson did of the movie Alien, which actually I own and is incredible. But still, this is, much lesser known movie, but still, what a weird thing. Okay, but we're out to get to the main feature here, main event. This is I Am Age by J. Catherine Jones. And it is, one thing I'll say about all of the I Am Age, because I've read several of them, is they're almost impenetrably thoughtful. There's times where I feel like it has a clear point, but then other times it doesn't, because in the next panel it's not like straight one-to-one storytelling, and it seems to be related to kind of Paleolithic people, and it's about cave. This one's about cave paintings, maybe, or somebody who did cave paintings. Anyway, I just love the art of it. I love this heavy ink work, this kind of impressionistic method of just application. I love the rendering of the cave paintings and this tree, of course. All the natural world in the hands of J. Catherine Jones is always in good hands, and gotta love her signature. But anyway, the main event is The Eye of the Goddess Islia by Brokol Ramohi. I apologize if that's not even close to the pronunciation, but I'm doing my best. Anyway, look at this killer image. This art is jaw-dropping at times, both from the line work and the color. And it starts off, and so what this feels like is Brokol's take on Conan, essentially. This is a very this is in the same mold as Conan, although this character's name is Arcane, which is interesting because Arcane means magic, but he's a barbarian kind of guy. Magic does take place in this story, but but anyway, look at these amazing colors. This deep kind of blue purple tree, and the line work on that tree is something else. And just the line work everywhere. This guy is incredible. He also signs most of his pages, which I really respect. I really love that, because he's like, no, this is art. I'm signing this shit. And yeah, just such killer line work. And yeah, the color is amazing. And since there's no like colorist involved here, I'm assuming he's coloring it himself. The same with this and anything else. I'm assuming that the artists are coloring it themselves unless otherwise specified, but I may be wrong. But he's charging towards this burning village, and we come across the survivors, and they're basically like, there's this asshole. He's been ravaging and destroying, killing people, all sorts of horrible things, and basically, but like, there's nothing you could do for us. Just let us die in the flames with our relatives. And it's like really dark opener, and he's like, and then he rides on, and it's like, okay, so is he going to avenge these people? I guess so, but just, oh my god, look at this face. Look at these trees here. Yeah, I'm always gonna be looking at trees, like all like the agonized people. That horse is amazing. And yeah, our hero here, Arcane, kind of surveying all this destruction. And then move to this panel. And this page, look at, oh my god. I love the purples of this rock face here. I love just its distinctness. What a great panel. Love the coloring of the sun and yellows. And I'm just going to gush about it. But then he gets surrounded by the warriors that are killing everybody, essentially. And I love the isolation of them in blue back here. It just makes them stand out, but also I can still see the nice line work there, which is nice. Then we get this great little battle spread. And the costuming is very Wagnerian. And Wagnerian meets Conan. And I like it. But it's just, great, believable costuming. The physicality is incredible. And I also love that everybody's kind of got a different outfit. Like, there's similarities to some of it, but for the most part, everything has its own look. And then, he has this big bloody battle, but it acknowledges, like, I can't do it all myself. Or, like, there's just too many guys. But he does a decent amount of damage, but then he's captured. And again, bold color choices here, because there's like dudes just all highlighted in like pinks and purples back here, this orange horse, and then like the color comes in green here, just again to push and pull features out so that the storytelling is never confused. Because you do this in just straight black and white, I still feel like it would read pretty good, but it reads even better with the color, which makes me think that he's doing the color himself, and he's making these bold choices. I love like the purples and the reds in here, just great. So he's being taken back to the master, or to the leader, because he caused all this havoc, and they think the leader's gonna want some retribution. And I just love we get this one quiet panel with no text adjoining it that is just showing that the journey is taking a while, and it's a short story, but I feel like that's just enough to tell us that like it's long. It's a long journey. Love the color in these golds in here, and even the blues in the mountains there, and then this great panel here with all these guys, but our hero is highlighted in the front, and these people in the front are giving more specific colors. And here's our bad guy leader, Tugar. And he's like, you're going to die in the morning. And then he's like, but first, you're going to join me in a feast. And that's, I think, a fascinating way. And he's like, we're going to dine before you die because you're a great warrior. And I'm like, that's pretty good. So we have this big feast here. And again, everything looks good. I mean, I'm breezing through it, but it's just, and these bold color choices, which just knock me out. It's using the 4-color process, and it just looks great. And then here we have, or it's not even the 4-color process. It's just using those 4 colors in application. Looks incredible. Anyway, we have him getting drunk, and the bad guy's like, I'll tell you the secret of why my men are such good fighters. And it's basically, there's this artifact called the Eye of the Goddess Islia that causes people to foam it up into a rage. Basically, it causes people to hate. And he uses it on his men to make them more intense and vicious fighters. And the way it works, and it's really upsetting because like you have, because basically these priestesses had the jewel, and they would use it essentially to control the population of their country. So they would be the masters of it, and he stole it. And the way it works is he like whispers into it like, this guy's a piece of shit and I hate him. And then everybody who's looked at the eye feels those feelings from inside, and with that rage, they like murder just this one of his men. And there's Tugar and him isolated in the purple back here. Just again, great bold choices. But also, what a hell of a weapon, and what a truly like evil concept. And it's just a great fantasy concept. It's a great magical item, and it's just that's heavy, dude. I really love that. And then Arcane takes out Tugar, and he escapes. And just oh man, look at this splash of color in here, just to denote the fire and the rush. And all of this this beautifully applied color, and this greens in here. Again, bold choices. And he escapes. And I just love that he's in blue here because it's night, purple night here. And he escapes, but he's left his sword behind. He wants to get it back, and so he sees one of the warriors here, and he thinks and it's gonna ambush him, but it's actually one of the priestesses, and she's of course dressed almost like Deja Thoris or something like that. But very, again, World of Conan, but she's a priestess who I guess has some magic ability, and she wants to get the eye back. And so he's like, we'll work together. I'll help you get the eye if you help me get my sword back, basically. And what I love is that they return, he's sneaking around, she shows up, and then she projects an illusion that makes it look like she's on fire. And I just love the coloring of these two panels. Look at the blue right here and the purple. And it's not like it's realistic. It just looks amazing. And it helps you read the image properly, where it's like, oh, fire, flames, and then all the hot flame colors in here where it looks like she's on fire. And again, all this great texture in here. And also note that like all this text in here had to be translated from, I'm assuming, at least French, because in the original copy of the book it was a French book. So all translated back. Lettering looks great. It's the invisible art in comics. And he sneaks in, he takes it, and then right before he leaves, he tells the crystal, or he speaks into the crystal, that they all hate each other and they won't rest until they're all dead. And so he basically turns them all onto each other. This guy gets an axe in the chest. This guy gets it's such a great turn. And I think it's great. Look at that color. And so they escape with them killing each other. He's avenged that the villagers and anybody that Tugar and his men have killed. And then they kind of have a moment's rest, and she passes out. It looks like they might, become an item. But then, without her knowing, he takes the eye, and it's got like this gold casing around it, and he takes that off, cracks the jewel in half, but then puts the gold casing back to make it look like it isn't broken in half, and then he puts it back. And with that intention, and she doesn't know it, and she's like, why don't you come to my home, or my world my land whenever you're, whenever you can. And he's like, yeah, sure thing. And she doesn't know that he's broken it, and at least as far as he's concerned, he's destroyed it, and that it won't cause hate again. And I just love that was, and then he's like, and I hope one day I will go to your country, and I just hope everything's different, and I never see you again, because basically the implications that the priestesses, because there's like a peasant rebellion that wants to revolt against the priestesses, but they use the crystal to keep them at bay, and he hopes that the revolt happens and she kind of either flees or potentially gets her comeuppance. But yeah, so that's, in such a tight amount of time, an incredible, I think a really great little fantasy story, real great one-off story, and the art is just commanding. It's powerful. It's beautiful. And then right next to it, you have this asshole saying that fantasy stories are stupid. Yeah, Charles Platt, you're a dipshit. Anyway, incredible stuff. Incredible stuff. We have some other works here. More like social satire. There's definitely some social satire coming up soon. Shape of Rage. David Cronenberg, George Romero, John Carpenter, Joe Dante, interviewing all the cool guys back then. I love it. Some Born Again. Just, yeah, incredible artwork. And then I love this. This is like another satire thing. It's got lots of well-known people. I like that he's like a Jehovah's Witness or something here. Anyway, it's just, it's a bizarre comic that's definitely of its time. It's like Bob Dylan's in it, and yeah, it's definitely a very like social commentary comic, but the artwork is very incredible, very powerful imagery. Yeah, great stuff. And then some reviews of like David Byrne and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Definitely cool, like of its time stuff. Yeah. Anyway, and Nancy Reagan. So anyway, that was Heavy Metal. And I'm losing the cover. No! That's Heavy Metal. And I'm looking forward to the next issue I get to do, but how about that? How about that? Incredible stuff. And, I'll quickly tell you that you should look into my comic, Side Questers. I'm not as good as this guy, but I do my best, and I occasionally have bold choices in colors and stuff like that. But this collects the first 8 issues, and you can buy it on my website, and it's the thing I'm most proud of. Got short stories of magic and sorcery and evil and shit like that take place in the same universe as Side Questers. You can buy these on my website, and you can also buy my collected edition of 3-Panel Origin, my weekly webcomic where I create a character and tell their origin 3 panels, as well as short stories of these characters that kind of fit the mold of The Tick or something like that. But in any case, that's Heavy Metal. Go listen to some music or something.